Hello, my name is Keely Pritchett, and I am a fourth grade teacher at Lakewood Elementary School. I've been very fortunate to be able to present to this class before about STEM in the classroom. I'm very passionate about this, and I love being able to share what I do in my classroom and what I've learned. And so I really wanted to title this presentation STEM is a Mindset because it's so true. It's not just about building robots, which I think we often might think in our minds. STEM is truly a mindset, a way of thinking. And I want to share a little bit about how I've developed that way of thinking, how I continue to improve that way of thinking. So if you have any questions, my contact information is going to be on the very last slide. Please feel free to reach out to me and contact me. I would love to help you find some resources or answer any questions you may have. Also, a little side note, I am going to leave this presentation in thumbnail mode just because it makes it a little easier for me to go back and forth between some of the links that I have in the slideshow itself. So, information about me. I'm from Phoenix City, Alabama. I teach fourth grade at Lakewood Elementary School. This is my 8th year teaching. My husband, who is also a teacher, he teaches high school classes. His name is Preston Pritchett. I'm currently pursuing my PhD in adult education from Auburn University. It's really hard, but I know it's going to be worth it in the end. And in my spare time, I enjoy singing at my church. I love to read and traveling wherever I'm able to go. I'm sure you've seen some of these around. This is my Bitmoji classroom, and I wanted to include it just to kind of give you an idea of who I am as a teacher, what my classroom environment looks like. Because of my love for traveling, I have a travel theme in my classroom. I have globes hanging from the ceiling. I have a large rug. I have a banner just like you see in my Bitmoji classroom. Of course, this one is much cleaner than my classroom often is because, as you notice, there are not a ton of children in it. But this is kind of the theme that I go with in my classroom. Okay, so you may have heard this information before, but I think it's important enough to continue sharing. The 4 C's of STEM. STEM is a mindset. Okay, a STEM lesson involves the opportunity for collaboration, communicating, creativity, and critical thinking. And one of the C's that I think really gets us caught up more often is the creativity. Oh, they're coloring, they're being creative. Completing a coloring sheet does not make it a STEM lesson. Our children being given the opportunity to learn about things outside of their classroom, about the real world? Are they having the opportunity to talk about these thoughts with their classmates, to problem solve with their classmates? Are they just blurting out information, or are they having the opportunity to take a problem, solve it, and really think about it? Now, I also want to be clear, every lesson, every moment of every day is not going to be the most stellar lesson you've ever seen. Some things are a bit more simple, and that's okay. But we do have to make sure that lessons we are planning a majority of the time include these 4 C's. Okay. Some things that I found helpful in easily implementing STEM are called SOS strategies, which basically means like help. How do I integrate this? These are some easy ways to do that. These are some of the favorites I've used before. Tweet. If you print off just a blank Twitter strip, you may have a social studies lesson and ask your students, hey, I want you to write a tweet about what we just learned. Include hashtags. Any way you can include anything that reminds them or relates to social media really engages them. AEIOU, the way I implement this in my classroom, I give each student a sticky note. I have them write AEIOU vertically on their sticky note. And then beside the A, okay, what's an adjective from the story we just read? What's an emotion that you feel when you read this? What's something that interests you? What's something that surprises you and makes you go, oh, and what's something that you would like to have a better understanding of? This is an easy way for them to get their thoughts on paper and takes so little time. See, think, wonder. This really is more of a verbal exercise. What do you see on this page? What does it make you think about? What do you wonder about when you see this? And then also another one of my favorites, 6-word story. And I like this because it really makes kids think. So I may ask them a question and say, okay, we're going to complete this using 6-word story. You have to answer this question using only 6 words. And it really makes them think what's important and what's not. How can I get my message across by only using 6 words? Is it necessary that I use a, and the? Or do I need to highlight specific vocabulary from this lesson so I can really show my teacher what I've been implementing or what I've been learning? Okay, So, I'm going to share a large scale STEM project that I've completed before with you, but then later on, I'm also going to show you some things that are more practical on a daily basis. But I do want to show you kind of what this can look like. There's a lot of work that goes into this on the front end, but once you have your plan established and you collaborate with your coworkers, it really is an enjoyable process to watch your students be able to engage. So, this project based learning project that my class participated in, as well as the students in my other two classes. At the time, I was teaching on a three-man team. I had three classes, and I taught all of the reading language arts for those three classes. Another teacher taught science and social studies, and another teacher taught all of the math. So we were able to collaborate on this city planning project. This was pre-COVID, so it did make things a little easier. Okay, making those real world connections. The more you do this, the easier it is when you're reading a story. Hey, when is the time you've seen this? Tell me about a time when you were out of school that this happened. It becomes easier the more you do it. I promise. So I want you to think when you plan lessons, how can I relate this back to something these kids see in their lives outside of school? But this is the problem they were presented with. Our city is growing. Phoenix City officials are wanting to design a downtown area similar to Columbus's downtown area, which is very well developed for tourists. We need to build higher buildings to accommodate the citizens of Phoenix City. Remember, though, the river is one of our precious resources. We don't want to pollute the river. Research how architecture in our city has changed over time. So, students at this point were placed into groups based on learning levels where they were able to research architecture as well as some developments that they would like to see happen in our city. So my part as the English language arts teacher was to bring in a writing piece as well as that research opportunity. Guys, any chance you can give them to learn how to research, you know that that is a very valuable skill that they will be using the rest of their lives. So any chance you get to involve them in research, proper research, what that looks like, proper use of the internet and other sources, please take that opportunity. So for me, what is it like to be a writer? And I wanted to make some correct connections to careers, so journalists, authors, other people who write. And so here's a good resource that I'll let you view on your own. It's called Nepris. It is an online, it's almost like a YouTube, but with a lot of videos basically based on careers or different locations around the world. So I really like it. It's a little more educational. You don't have some of the pop ups you might find on YouTube. So that's a really good source for if you need a video for a specific career that you would like to show your students. Okay, so you would not believe the number of students who've never seen a newspaper. It's shocking, but a lot of them have no idea. So I brought newspaper to the class and asked, what are these? What do you see when you look at this? Why do you think this is important to our community? So we spent a day just talking about a newspaper, what that is, and integrating an English language arts standard, which was identifying text features. So I brought these newspapers to class. I gave them a list of things that they would have to identify. So as they worked in groups, they had to identify various text features. Through a newspaper scavenger hunt. So they had to find a headline, a sales price, a comic strip, sports scores, movie review, or some other things. I made them find some captions. I really made them identify various pieces because I wanted them to have a good visual of this is what an article should look like. These are the pieces of a newspaper article because the next step is writing an article. Okay, so these are some of the text features that I had them identify: heading, subheading, news story, advertisement. So while they were researching different things that they were going to include in the newspaper article that they would soon write, I used this website. It is completely free called Poplet, and it is most user friendly if you have an iPad. However, it's not difficult to use just on a Chromebook or a desktop as well if you go to poplet.com. I've also used it in social studies before to create timelines. It's a very easy resource. You see an example of it on the screen. You can add these little bubbles, which are called popples, and rearrange them. You can put pictures in them, type in them, change the color. So I had students basically brainstorm via Poplet things they wanted in their community. What did they think would be attractive to tourists? What were some topics they were going to write about? How were they going to present this in their newspaper? Really, this was just a brainstorming activity for them to get everything they were feeling and their excitement out on this Poplet. Okay, so when they were researching, these are some of the things that students thought would be great to add to our city, to our tourism. Whitewater rafting, a ropes course, popular restaurants. There are a lot of restaurants in Columbus, Georgia, and not very many in Phoenix City, so they wanted to bring some of those restaurants to the other side of the river. Maybe a splash pad, different playgrounds. So, of course, some of them had to look up what these look like, where are good places to build a ropes course. We can't just plop one anywhere. So they really had to think about the reality of building some of these things and implementing them. It's not so easy as to say, oh, I want a splash pad and just pop it wherever you want. They had to think about where are some good places that would not intrude with someone's living or a school or other city ordinances or laws. Like we had a lot of in-depth conversation, so it's kind of hard to communicate that the whole extent of the project through this presentation, but I wanted to give you an overview. When my kids research, because the internet is wonderful yet horrible at the same time, a lot of times I get them to use this kid-friendly research engine called Kiddle, and it just has a lot of kind of blockages and limitations that they may not find on Google and other places. So that's a good resource if you want to make sure that your kids are kind of staying on track. Kiddle is a more friendly research option. Okay, so now's the time where students write newspaper articles. They had to make it look like the newspapers they'd seen in class. They had to include some of those text features. And they were going to explain some of the new developments that we had planned to build in our city via their newspaper article. So in any assignment, guys, it's so important for students to understand the expectations, for them to have a visual, an example, a checklist, a rubric. You can't expect them to give their best if they don't know what is expected of them. So I have some links here for this specific project. I had a checklist for things they would need on their article, as well as a digital grading rubric that they could go on and they could rate themselves using this rubric. And then I used the same rubric after they'd been able to check themselves to grade them in the end. So those are links that you can explore on your own. Here are some examples, some of my favorite ones. I really liked this one. We obviously created this around Christmas time. But one of my students in particular wanted to have a cute little town square with a huge Christmas tree and everyone sing around the Christmas tree and drink hot cocoa. It was a really cute vision. So this was what she decided to bring, a gorgeous town square for people to enjoy and people to gather. Another student, one of my more scientific-minded students, really wanted an insectarium. The student is brilliant. And so he wanted to really implement this in the city for people to go and see and be able to collect bugs and learn about them. And then, some of the most popular restaurants, I got a lot of Olive Gardens, Starbucks, of course. And then what was actually really exciting at our career fair that year, we had someone from Phoenix City to come and talk about what it takes to develop and to build these places. You have to get special permissions from national headquarters and pay certain amounts of money to get these restaurants and different things to come to you. So we, myself especially, learned a lot about what it takes to implement all of these exciting things that in our heads sound awesome, but may not be as easy to implement in reality. Okay. Also, my math partner, she did a really good job of having students create blueprints of whatever it was that they decided they wanted to implement in their city. She incorporated the standard with area and perimeter. So her slideshow, as well as her grading rubric, is attached. She graded their blueprints. And then in science class, which here's the rubric for that as well, they ended up building whatever item they chose, whether it be a Starbucks, an Olive Garden, a splash pad. Each student had to create build their item, and then they put them all together to build their city. So, I mean, we just collected boxes and used all kinds of craft supplies for them to create whatever it was that they thought would benefit our city. And these are some of the finished products. I was very pleased. They were so proud of this in the end. And guys, this lesson took a course of several weeks. So I would do my part, and the math teacher would do her part, and then the science and social studies teacher would do her part. So we got a lot out of it. I saw how the students grew and kind of their thinking process was really challenged during this, but also they found it very rewarding because they got to show off their creation. One of our science standards also is being able to identify circuits, and they learn how to build circuits in science. So each student that created a building, well, actually, each student had to wire a circuit and either create like a street light. If you had a building, you could add wire your circuit and add a light inside of your building. So we really were able to cover all content areas through this project, and it made them think about things that they see in real life when they see a construction worker and they're riding in the car. You know, this isn't just by chance. There's a lot of planning that goes into the developments from our city. Okay, another thing I love, my students love, oh my goodness, escape rooms. They are so awesome because they really find their competitive spirit. I put them in groups, allow them to work together. So I actually created this escape room. It's a simile and metaphor escape room. I have it linked here, the file with everything I used for it. So if you want to use it or model your own after it, please feel free. I used this past Christmas, a simile and metaphor escape room. And there are escape rooms that are completely digital, or some people like to do them on paper. I kind of like a hybrid method. Any of the puzzles I print out for them, I let them work off, cross out, and then enter any of their answers into a Google form. And then it'll tell them if they got the clue right or not and let them move on or tell them to keep working. They loved this. So, part of this, they had 4 challenges. 3 were puzzles, and the last one was to write a letter to Santa, and they had to include 3 similes and metaphors within their letter. So, you see this picture on the right. I have 2 students, and they completed their letter to Santa and escape the escape room. Okay, digital vocabulary choice boards. The more they use vocabulary words, of course, the better off they're going to be when applying these. You know, we cannot just say, here's the word, find the definition. They have to know how to use these words in context. And choice boards, giving students choice really gives you a lot of leeway in your classroom. And it makes them think, it makes them apply. A lot of times I'll put them with a partner and help and let them collaborate and help each other. So I do want to show you this. The digital choice board. So here's some of the options. I usually tell my students, I don't make them like make a perfect line. I'll tell them to choose 3 activities. So one of their favorites, create a meme. They have to take their vocabulary words for that unit and create a meme, and it has the website linked where you can go to that. They can create puzzles, newspaper clippings, comics. They can record a story, map it out, which is like vocabulary mapping, write stories. There's one with a spinning wheel that helps them, in which they have to write sentences, as well as like one where they have to write a sentence and draw. They love this. It gives them choice. However, it really gives me an opportunity to see, okay, you're understanding how to use this word in context or you're not, and have those personal conversations with those students who are not. Okay. Pen Pal project. We actually just started this project. I did not come up with this idea. Actually, it was sent to us through the U.S. Postal Service. You could sign up for a kit and be connected with another classroom from your grade level from a school in a different area of the country. So this has been really exciting for them to have some real world experiences, learning how to write addresses, learning how to letter write. Meeting people who are from different parts of the country than them who have different experiences. So I'm excited to see how this progresses. So these are introduction slides. I want to show you these. So in our introduction slides, we're able to show both schools. We are partnered with a school in Texas. So our school versus a school in Texas. Both of our media specialists were great and had kind of like an introductory video about um, our schools and what we're looking for in pen pals. Some just different facts, fun facts about the state that you may want to know. And then each class posted a class picture. And then this is our timeline, how we will continue throughout the end of the year writing letters to these students. Each child was partnered with another one in the other class. And at the very end, the big reveal will be a picture so you know what your pen pal looks like. And then these pairs slides, just different slides telling students who they're partnered with. This is Nairobi in my class, and she is partnered with Ayana in Texas. So they have been all over this. So excited to learn about how their school is different, how it's the same, just to make a new friend. And I've been really encouraged by their excitement over this project. Okay, virtual field trips. Again, anytime you can introduce something from the outside world to them, some kids don't have the opportunity to go anywhere. And you can Google virtual field trips, find them a lot of places. One of my favorites that I use every year, there is a virtual field trip for Ford's Theater. When we talk about President Lincoln and his assassination, it uses Google Maps. So you're able to go in the theater, look around. My kids eat this up. And even when I have to move on to something else, they're like, please, can we get back on that? And for a kid to say, hey, can I jump back into this lesson? Wow, it does my teacher heart good. So anytime, some are better than others. You can also, if there's not a virtual field trip, I've had opportunities to like schedule a Zoom call with someone from maybe a certain museum or a certain place. And a lot of times, if you reach out, they're happy to meet and talk with your students via Zoom. So even if there's not a virtual field trip created, it's a good thing to do to be able to put them in contact with someone, and it really brings that information to life. Here's some other very helpful websites, which I'm not going to go through each one of these because you are adults, and I'm going to send this video as well as just the slideshow to your professor so she can send it out to you and you can look at these links. You can play around. Most of these are free, or there is a free version. I love free. And if you do not know Teachers Pay Teachers, have not utilized Teachers Pay Teachers, please do. It is a website where teachers submit lesson plans, submit resources, and often there's a small price to whatever that is, but I'm willing to pay $2 to keep me from spending an hour creating something, as long as I feel that other resource covers the standards and really is going to be beneficial for my students. So anyway, Teachers Pay Teachers, it's a must. But I do want to talk through these really quickly. Vocabulary, my kids love. There are a library of lessons and videos, and it uses music to teach students, which I absolutely adore. You can type in, like recently we learned and talked about idioms. So I could type in idioms, and it gives you a song about idioms, a vocab game with idioms, some flashcards about idioms, a quiz, a read aloud, and you can assign all those things to your students. They can log into Flocabulary and complete them all. You can assign certain things. You can assign some things to some students and some things to others. We utilize Flocabulary a lot. Nearpod is also like an interactive Google Slides where students can take quizzes and complete interactive like bulletin boards. Nearpod is excellent, also has a library of resources. Quizlet quizzes, those are online flashcards, easy ways to practice and review with your students. Edpuzzle is a really good resource that I found last year. It takes videos, or you can download some from YouTube. You can make your own videos and upload them, or they have a library on Edpuzzle where you can search for different topics. And at different points throughout the video, you can insert questions where students have to answer questions throughout the video. And there's also a feature, my favorite, it's a no skip feature. So students don't just skip to the end and rush through it. They have to complete the video in the proper amount of time. Blooket, oops, I put that on there twice. Blooket is a review game website also, but the kids adore it, okay? You can enter your questions, or they have a library on Blooket as well. And then kids can play a series of games and it's reviewed, but they truly feel like they're playing a video game and they get a lot out of it. Bamboozle is almost like a Jeopardy. I use this as a review game with my class, and it allows them to kind of get up and get moving. You can look at that. And then also Boom Learning. Those are online flashcards, but I use them a lot for practice. So, for instance, right now we're studying homophones. There is a set for there, and there, your, and your. All of these different things, and they're able to go on and practice. And if they get it right, it'll bing. If not, the card doesn't go away, and they just have to continue. Practicing until they get all of the cards right. Also, helpful resources. I'm a big fan of all Google products. You may be more of a Microsoft person, but all of these tools, Google Classroom, Forms, Docs, Slide, Sheets, help me collaborate well with my students. They're able to collaborate on these, and I can assign them easily and access them online. Jamboard is like an online, it's kind of like a slideshow, but a little cooler. Kind of like sticky notes that you can assign to your students, and they can post things, and you can see who's understanding what. Padlet, an online bulletin board where students can be creative, or I can make one as a teacher and assign it to students with different videos. And then Kami is just a PDF editing extension. We use Kami on a daily basis where I can upload a document, they can mark on it, they can type on it. And I'm not having, of course, to just make copies because I'm a huge fan of technology. Using digital rubrics. I talked about earlier how important it is to show students your expectations. And I am going to show you this one. Okay. Anytime we work on a piece of writing, I have them complete this writing rubric to check themselves. And then we go back and we look at the class data. Okay. How many people are forgetting to indent? How many people have choppy sentences? And I've really been surprised at how honest they are when they fill this out. And then if they discover they have mistakes, if when they read it, it's really not that interesting, if their handwriting's messy, after they finish this rubric, they have to go back and make any corrections of things that they think could be better. Okay. Words of advice. Okay. I am no expert. There are a lot of things I wish I was better at. This is my 8th year teaching, and I hope in 8 more years I can look back and say, man, I'm so glad I'm so much better now than I was then. Every year you have to desire to be better. But if I could give you any advice, if you've never been in the classroom, if you're anxious about that, these are some of my pieces of advice. During your first year teaching, you have to give yourself grace. You see all these things on Pinterest and you think, wow, this is really awesome. And then you implement it and you think, wow, this is not really awesome in real life. You're learning with them. And it's okay to say, hey guys, I thought this would be a good idea, but I'm realizing it's not. So we're not going to do this anymore, and we're going to move on to something else. It is okay to say that. And after your first year, you have a better understanding of, this is how I want to manage my classroom. This is how I want to operate in the classroom. This is how I want things organized. And you learn something new every year, but I promise you, after that first year, after you've made those mistakes, that you'll have such a better understanding of yourself and how you function as a teacher. Find your people. And what I mean by that is find a teacher, or hopefully teachers, people that you can rely on to collaborate with. My partners and I split up the workload, and I know that when I ask my partners, hey, will you create this and I'll create this, that they're going to accomplish that in a timely manner. And I appreciate that so much. We work well together, and there's so much you have to do as a teacher. Any chance you can have to take some of that off of you, do that. And then classroom management, of course, I would highly encourage, if you know a teacher and are comfortable enough with a teacher, asking her if you can meet her for coffee, if you can go to her classroom during the summer or sometime, if she's okay with that, and say, all right, I'm going to pretend like I'm a student. This is my first day. I need you to walk through the first day of school with me. Okay. And I had someone do that for me, and it was one of the most helpful things, because it really made me think about the first day and certain things that need to be set up that I had not thought about before, and kind of see through a child's eyes what that should look like. There were some things this teacher told me that I liked. There were some things I did differently, and that's okay. But I really would encourage you to find someone that you trust, a teacher you trust and admire, and say, how do you manage your classroom? Please walk me through the first day of school. Give me some advice. This is my contact information. I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact me. Um, I really am here for you. We've got to stay together and work our best to do our best for these kids. But also, it's a very difficult task being a teacher, and I just want you to know you're not in it alone. Um, we can learn from each other, and so please contact me if you have any questions. And I also want to apologize if at any point I have spoken too quickly during this presentation. I'm really bad at it. I get excited and just talk, 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 talk. Or if anything's unclear, I really apologize. But please, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Best of luck in the rest of your college experience, and I hope to hear from some of you.